Cool. And we're live. Welcome back to another episode of the Buffaloes Breakdown Podcast. I'm one half of your host, Ryland. I'm here with Jake.
How you doing, guys?
And we're checking in from Lubbock, Texas, where the Buffs play Texas Tech tomorrow. Not a lot going on here. We managed to beat the weather. Everyone's fighting to get down here. We managed to leave early and get down here. And we're here with special guest Jack. Always welcome to come on the podcast. It's always a pleasure to have you, Jack. How are you?
What's going on? Yeah, it was terrible to be anywhere other than inside today. So I'm glad you guys can make it out because I don't know. I'm watching this concrete pile up on this tree outside my window, and I'm just hoping it's there tomorrow.
Yeah, that tends to happen. We were supposed to drive today, and yesterday Jake and I talked. We were like, either we got to go today or we're not going.
Yeah,
so we left the day early. And I know a bunch of people had trouble getting down here. I know Adam had an especially horrible time getting down here. So
see who makes it.
I know it'll be interesting to see who actually braved it and made the trip down here. But
it's already a soul-sucking drive too.
Yeah,
it is. It's been really shitty down here too. The weather has it's been like misting rain all day. It's like 40 degrees. At least it's not snowing, but it's not great.
And that's just wet. Ugh. We got into weather talk so easily.
I know. We went down the rabbit hole a little bit. But CU does play Texas Tech tomorrow. Monumental game for their chances of winning the Big 12. Mm-hmm. They got a lot of help last weekend, even though they didn't play, with Kansas State losing to Houston and then Iowa State losing to Texas Tech. So we're in a fantastic position to make a run at this conference. I know that you think that we're going to lose to Kansas, correct? In our prediction, you predicted that we lose to Kansas.
I said that, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So do you think that we'll pull this off and we'll make the championship game?
What I guess yeah, you're right. Would that? I don't know if I pull this out. Go ahead.
No, I don't think we would unless we had the tiebreaker against Iowa State. Because Kansas State has the tiebreaker against us, and they play each other.
If we win out and Iowa State loses again, regardless of who, we're in. So we need Kansas State to beat Iowa State in Farmageddon in the last week.
They will be favored on a neutral.
They will. And Kansas State should win that game.
I don't know where that game is, but
I think it's in Ames.
Ames? Okay.
Jake's looking it up for us. Yeah, but that now becomes a huge game too, where as long as we don't lose, we're going to be locked into whatever's happening in Ames in like the last week of the month.
Zooming out, like this is we immediately jumped into this too, but like just big picture in the Big 12. CU is one loss away from another team from controlling their destiny fully, and obviously that means that the whole time CU just needs to win. So really weird spot, and not at all, I think, what any of us expected out of the opponents for CU this year. But going back, right, CU missed Houston, CU missed Arizona State, CU missed BYU, and I'm forgetting the fourth one that CU missed. And Iowa State, thank you. At the beginning of the year, that looked like CU was missing four of the worst teams in the Big 12, right? Now, if you go here, is the CU have the easiest November of anyone in the Big 12? I think they do on paper, right?
Probably.
And those are at least three of the top four teams picked. Like, that is crazy that a conference can just straight flip like that. It's fun. It's crazy, but it's fun. So I don't think that the Big 12 is going to get anyone in except for the automatic qualifier, unless BYU is somehow left out of the championship game, but still if BYU loses a close championship game, maybe they sneak in. But I think everyone else is kind of just champ or bust. And CU's had that mentality for a while now. So I don't know, like that we haven't talked since before the Cincinnati game. That Cincinnati game was a really great win, and then that bye week that CU had was like the best bye week you could possibly ask for across the board. Not only did CU get really lucky with who lost and how they lost, but I will also say for this week specifically, it was maybe the best case scenario for a setup playing Texas Tech. Emotional win on the road against a top 10 team, which like 1 point win, walk-off win, right? That is what you might call an emotional hangover spot coming back home in the next week. And then also, rumors are, or speculation is, they lost their entire starting defensive line that game. So, don't want to risk that, but you're coming out of a bye week. CU's healthier than they have been probably all year, except for that defensive line spot. And Texas Tech is potentially facing an emotional hangover, also has a lot of injuries, and CU has everything in front of them. So it's a fun setup.
Yeah, in talking about that Texas Tech defensive line, when they had their starters, they still had trouble generating pressure and a lot of trouble. They're averaging about 1 sack a game in this conference.
Yeah, we've been there.
Yeah, but that's really conducive to success in this offense with how often they have Shedeur dropping back and throwing passes. And if, the defensive line is as dinged up as rumors are saying, that's even bigger. I guess we can jump into talking about the Texas Tech matchup now. If you haven't read Jake's preview article, you should go do that. Shameless RalphieReport.com plug of the episode. So go do that. But what do you guys see out of Texas Tech when you go back and watch the film?
I'll let you go first, Jack.
Oh, okay.
You're on a roll.
Yeah. So I think, the big thing you're going to hear from the Texas Tech side, and also the obvious thing, is Taj Brooks is really good at football. So you knew that coming in to the season. Everyone knew that coming into the season, and yet it still seems to surprise people. He's incredibly steady. He's a really good running back. And I think Texas Tech fans are more frustrated than anything that he only gets like 15, 18 carries a game. So they don't rely on him as much as maybe they should even, but they do know that he's an incredible weapon. Everyone knows that. Taj Brooks is the best player on the team, period. So moving beyond that, Baron Morton is, I think, right in that range of, oh my God, I'm blanking on the Cincinnati quarterback's name. Oh my God.
Sorsby.
Sorsby, thank you. Brendan Sorsby. Baron Morton, Brendan Sorsby. These are fake names. These cannot be real people.
It's a fake conference.
Well, I mean, kind of, yeah. It's contrived. The Big Eight's the only true conference.
True.
Baron Morton is kind of in that Brendan Sorsby range. I think Sorsby is actually a better thrower than Morton is. I think Morton is solid though, and their offensive coordinator lets him rip like all day long. The one thing they might have more than Cincinnati is wide receiver speed. Josh Kelly's really fast. They have other fast guys, but no one that's incredibly dangerous. I still think to date that the best wide receiver core that CU's faced is probably Baylor, and I don't think that changes this week. I think that on defense, Texas Tech is a sieve. They play like maximalist football, right? Texas Tech has the most points in conference play in the Big 12 and also give up the most points in conference play in the Big 12. So they're really just going for like the spectrum of human experience. They're not trying to have empty points, period. So defensively, that's what they do. They give up points, 50 to Abilene Christian, 55 to Baylor. Like they are very easily equipped to do that. Iowa State was probably the best they played all year, and also an off game for Iowa State. Without their defensive line up there, kind of hoping for an easier game up front, and their secondary might already be Texas barbecue.
Yeah, I think Jack did a really good job of summarizing Texas Tech. I think I think they've had some high points this season, but ultimately, I mean, we're only 3 weeks away at this point from them losing to Baylor by 24 points, and 4 weeks away from them only beating Arizona by 6 points. And Arizona has looked just pitiful. That bounce back game against Iowa State was absolutely huge for them. But with us coming off of a bye, with them having troubles across the board on this roster with injuries and, maybe just even being a step behind CU in regards to talent. I think this game, looks really good for CU, but I will say this is going to be their toughest test of the year looking forward. So CU needs to win. And if they can win, Ryland and I both agree, their odds of getting to the Big 12 Conference Championship, it probably goes up over 50%, I'd say. All of a sudden, CU's sitting at 7-2, but 5-1 in the conference. I think 5-1 in the conference. All of a sudden, CU, kind of, in my opinion, leapfrogs Iowa State for that second favorite over BYU. So especially with their schedule being so easy on the way out, it's going to be Utah, Oklahoma State, and Kansas. And those are 3 of the 4 worst teams in the Big 12 right now, people would probably say. So this is a must-win game for CU, no doubt about that. And this is, the game that's going to keep their conference championship hopes alive. But I was going to talk a little bit about CU and how they, can potentially win this game. I think this game reminds me a little bit of some matchups we've seen in the Big 12 this year. Like we saw Kansas State was a team that could do a little bit of everything, but primarily they wanted to establish the run game, and we let them. Over 200 yards for DJ Giddens. We can't let that happen again. I've started to kind of come back to this opinion that we got to make them beat us in the pass game. We've got 3 of the best corners. We probably have the best pass, cornerback room in the entire conference. So we're going to have to make Texas Tech beat us over the top, and we're going to have to load that box and make sure that Brooks can't get going, or else we might see something similar to what happened with Kansas State. And ultimately, I think Colorado's the better team, but the big thing in this game, like Nebraska, like Kansas State, we can't get down early. We have to score first, and we have to keep the pressure on them. If we allow them to run the ball down the middle, repeatedly, control the clock, control the time of possession, and we force ourselves into a position where we're going to have to throw. I could see this game. I could see Texas Tech either hanging around longer than they should, or even outright winning this game. So, let's hope the Buffs can get going early, establish that lead, and force Texas Tech into the pass, because that's really where there's some questions. Over the last 4 weeks, I think they're 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and lower than a 60% completion percentage. So, got to force Texas Tech into the pass, and a lot of those stats for their QB that stuff came early. Non-conference player against weaker opponents in the conference. So, summed up, don't let them run the ball. Don't let them do what Kansas State did. Don't let them run the ball. Maybe Ryland's got something to add.
I have a couple of things to add. I think that you're spot on with the assessment that don't let them establish a run game with Taj Brooks. This is Texas Tech. Historically, this program is going to air the ball out. From what I've seen from Baron Morton can be a threat, but a lot of the time he looks really frenzied in the pocket. He looks like very panicky when he's dropping back and throwing the ball. He kind of looks a little in over his head, and he has been turnover prone. We saw him throw 2 picks against Iowa State?
Yep.
2 picks against Iowa State. Kind of a lot going on, I think, in his head every time he's dropping back to pass. At least visibly, that's what it looks like. Rob Livingston has the opportunity to put this man in a blender, throw weird looks at him, and I don't think he's going to handle him well. So that's something that I think could be pretty interesting. The other thing I want to touch on is the Texas Tech secondary. Statistically, probably the worst secondary in the conference. They've allowed the most yards per game by like a margin of 50 yards. They're the only team in the conference that's averaging 300 plus passing yards per game. With CU's passing game and those wide receivers, this could be historic day for sure. That's a recipe for some real big record-breaking numbers happening. We'll have to see. Obviously, this is CU football. Weird stuff happens every week. But
I'm going to push back here on a few things. I think One thing that I'm hearing from national media, Texas Tech media, and CU media is the one time CU lost a conference game this year, Kansas State and DJ Giddens ran all over CU, and they lost at the end because they just gave up way too much throughout the game to Giddens. And some of that's absolutely true. Like, I think CU got destroyed on the ground with DJ Giddens. A lot of it in the second level too. But Kansas State, I think, is a relatively unique beast, especially in this conference, with how Avery Johnson operates, how Chris Kleiman operates, and more importantly, how their offensive line operates. So I think other people have schemes similar to Kansas State, but Kansas State also has like it's just operationally efficient. They know what they're going to do all the time, and Kleiman is a killer. He's a complete killer, right? I'm going to ask a trick question or a statistical question. Baron Morton is Texas Tech's second leading rusher in attempts with 35 this year. Second leading with 35 attempts this year. That's it. How many yards does he have on those 35 attempts?
I can't see.
I already looked. Well, also, I will say college quarterback rushing stats get a little messed up, right?
Yeah,
because they count the sacks.
Well, I would argue that it does get messed up, but also that's a good indicator, in my opinion, of like who this person is, right? Because that's still taking sacks. Shedeur Sanders takes 1 million sacks, right? So he has negative 18 yards this year. Like that still tells you something, even if the yards are not what they really are. So do you have a guess, Ryland?
Like 200 yards on the year?
He has 35 yards. Sorry, he has 15 yards. Excuse me. He has 15 yards on the year and 1 touchdown. So he's taking sacks, and that is absolutely dragging that down. But this isn't an Avery Johnson situation. This isn't even a Brennan Sorsby situation where he's going to be able to be a leak out. Like, I think even more than Sorsby, Morton is absolutely a statue. And that's what I'm going to push back a little bit is Zach Kitley's the Texas Tech offensive coordinator, and he is as air raid as you can get. Like, he is pure in that Texas Tech vein. He went to school there. He was a GA there. That's where he cut his teeth under Cliff Kingsbury. Like, that's his stuff, right? And under the air raid dynamic, you don't have that same rushing threat that you might get from a quarterback. And this is the final pushback I have, I guess, and maybe all of this is too homer, but I think CU has maybe bad rushing stats this year, but I also think on a per play basis, they don't allow a lot of successful runs when it's not the quarterback. I think a quarterback run is successful like 1,000,000% of the time against CU. But I think when it's a running back running the ball on a per play basis, if they need the yards, if they need 4 or more yards, they're not going to get that a decent amount of time. And with the way that Texas Tech is set up, that's how they run the ball. It's not necessarily weird looks or DJ Giddens coming outside, Dylan Edwards going outside, Avery Johnson going outside, or even UCF. It's not even KJ Jefferson and RJ Harvey, right? Like, it is pretty traditional, hand the ball off to this guy. And I think that is where CU's run defense is absolutely at its best.
Yeah, and if you look at it, if you look at the stats as a whole, there's kind of some outliers there. The Kansas State game with Giddens putting up as many yards as he did, and Nebraska didn't have a ton of attempts, I wouldn't say, on the ground to their leading rusher, but they had efficiency when they did. They were probably over 4 or 5 yards a carry, and they found holes when they ran. But if you look at it on a per game basis, there's really only been maybe two games this year, and maybe let's just cut out the first few games of the season. Recently, in recent memory, the last 5 or 6 games, there hasn't been a team that's been able to consistently run the ball on them except for Kansas State. UCF was a team that was supposed to come in and put up 200 rushing yards on us, just like
they were number one in rushing. They were number one in rushing at the time when CU played them.
Yep, and they really didn't get the run game established to the extent that they would have liked to, and they got to be so one-dimensional in the second half that it was just, I felt bad for KJ Jefferson. He just had to run the ball up the middle, and so yeah, Jack brings up a good point. This rushing defense for the most part has been really good, and so maybe where I actually see the biggest flaw of this defense being is their over-reliance on man coverage. You watch just about any game, the motion, like even against Cincinnati, the motion that Cincinnati was able to put out there, receivers running across the field, they were able to identify, when do we have a safety? When is it Shiloh or Cam lining up on this running back or this tight end or even this slot receiver? And when they were able to find those matchups, they were able to exploit them. And that, I want to say it was the second drive for Cincinnati. It was man coverage beater after man coverage beater all the way down the field. And they had like 4 to 5 successful man coverage beating routes in a row. And so this defense, you know, and immediately after on the next drive, Ryland and I watched, within the first 3 or 4 plays, they came out in zone multiple times. And so I'd like to see them, you know, incorporate zone a little bit more. You know, like Ryland asked that question to Livingston last week. He said, you know, is it a schematic thing or is it a personnel thing for you guys? Why do you play so much zone? And he said it was a combination of both. I think that reliance on zone or man coverage is a great thing. You know, it keeps the quarterback looking for man coverage at all times. But at the same time, you've got to have, there's no point in throwing a 100-mile-per-hour fastball if you can't throw a changeup to some extent. They know what's coming. So you got to be able to throw zone in every now and then. You got to be able to make these reads, these post-snap reads harder on the quarterback, because when you just sit into man all game, you're just looking for your man beater every time, and it really doesn't demand much of the opposing quarterback. So I'd like to see them, you know, throw in some zone coverage, you know, as the game progresses, but ultimately, you know, stopping the run's the first thing, and then let's let our top tier cornerbacks do the rest.
If you, and I kind of understand the thought process from Livingston and running a lot of man coverage when you have corners like Travis Hunter and DJ McKinney
For sure.
on your roster, that you can just kind of stick them out there and put them on an island for an entire drive. Like, why not? But if you think back also and you think about the plays that have really gotten CU, like the more explosive plays outside of the entire Kansas State game, just wipe the Kansas State game out of your mind. That RJ Harvey wheel route that really burned us for that UCF first touchdown, and then the Evan Pryor touchdown again, or I don't think it was a touchdown, but it was like a
huge play.
like a 70-yard play against Cincinnati. And it was just, they both ran him on the wheel route, the running backs on the wheel route, and the safety wasn't fast enough to pick it up.
Yeah.
So that's something that's extremely exploitable that they're going to need to figure out, because those man beaters.
I don't want to get a DMCA. Can I just like run the tape?
Can you?
Can I? Are you guys okay with
I'd
that?
be able to. I don't care.
Okay, let's see if I can do this.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
this isn't being like published anywhere. Well, I guess
It is. It's on.
I guess it is. It
We'll
will
be,
be.
we'll be okay. We'll be okay.
I'm not worried about it.
They trust us.
What is it like? It's like short in like 30 seconds, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, are we seeing this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, this is just on my DVR, right? And just watching this first drive, like you're talking about, all man coverage right there, really good deflection, right? But Scott Satterfield, just like Kleiman, in my opinion, they're both incredibly experienced play callers, and they're also both pro style. I think for some reason that's the stuff that really kills CU this year, is that when they're able to win in pro style man beaters. When it's just 4 out or 11 personnel, right? Like, I think they do a little bit better, and we're getting super in the weeds. Let's see what this. There you go, right there. Boom,
Yeah,
right there. Yep.
There's the prior one.
And it was just, I think it was just a missed assignment by Craig.
Well, just go back here. Sorsby reads one guy. Sorsby's reading one guy before he throws his ball, right?
Yeah, he's watching Cam right there, and Cam is directing traffic. And
right there. Oh, we're good.
Cam is lost in space there, and that was Cam's guy. I'm pretty sure.
Yep. And then let's look at the very next play, right? Let's look at the very next play.
It's the man beater that beats Shiloh, because Shiloh can't keep up with the motion here.
Well, I forgot.
Well, not this play.
Yeah. I've been running.
The next play.
I'm going 15 at a time because that's what YouTube TV gets me, so it's not perfect, but
it might not be this one either.
No, I think it is. Same thing. Look at that confusion. They know we're in man. It's pretty easy to tell.
You got Selman Craig playing on the slot guy.
Oh man, is that false start?
Yeah.
Okay. This is not it. But little tight end jump off. I will say Texas Tech's tight end, it should be burned in the mind of every CU fan. It's Jalen Conyers, who single-handedly destroyed CU under the Carl Durrell years when he was at Arizona State. Fun fact. He has less touchdowns on the season than he did against CU in that one game in 2020.
The ref got in the way.
I do remember that. There's been some real ref setting picks this season.
And it's going to be it's going to be this next play.
It's the next play, yeah.
And watch Shiloh Sanders, everybody, because Shiloh, and that's the thing, is they knew that they could get confusion in the secondary with safeties. This is the play. Shiloh gets confused on his assignment out here on the left.
Yeah,
Little corn dog
They
route.
I don't even know if it's confused. He just gets
got
it
beat.
wrong.
Yeah.
He gets way wrong.
Got the corn dog, yeah. Just got motioned.
The Andy Reid special.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I have that up whenever we want to reference the Cincinnati game if you want. But to your point, I think when CU gets beat, it's usually a man deep. I know Livingston loves it. I would love it too. I mean, pure mentality wise, I just love man coverage because we're just saying we're better than you, right? So, I do think, I mean, once again, I think the worst half that CU's played in conference football this year on defense is probably the first half against Kansas State, but that was DJ Giddens destroying Shiloh Sanders in the first game back, in my opinion. And then the other one was Baylor first half, where that was Sawyer Robinson hitting massive one-on-one throws over and over and over again, just constantly. And that's the one thing CU can't allow, right, is if you're in man like that, Baylor has weapons that I don't think Texas Tech necessarily has. Monterey Baldwin is still, I think, one of my favorite players in the country, but you just can't let him hit those back shoulders. You can't let him hit those one-on-one, like, huge leverage balls. And I would like to see more zone 2 because of that.
You gotta keep offenses honest too. Like, you know, like those man beaters, if you're just running man every play, you're gonna consistently be able to pick up like 5-6 yards on those. So in Texas Tech, just with that air raid, it can be a little bit scary, I think, necessarily. Would you agree with that? Like,
yeah, you know,
with Josh Kelly, like they can just put Josh Kelly on a go route and be like, just go try to beat him over the top. But I don't know if Baron Morton has the arm for that necessarily. They'll let Baron Morton throw the ball, but I don't know.
Yeah, you know, I don't know if he has that. You know, he throws a pretty good mid-range ball, but, you know, I don't know if he has that over-the-top accuracy consistently. And that's something we saw in the Baylor game. If you guys remember, we stuck in man coverage the entire game, just about no zone. And Hodge, McKinney, I don't want to say Travis, I think Hodge and McKinney both lost a handful of times, which is going to happen. If you take 60 snaps in man coverage, you might lose a couple. And luckily, the gap, they were close enough on that receiver's heels that it made it just tough enough on Sawyer Robertson where he could not fit the ball into that tight window. And I think, you know, I don't know that a lot of guys in the Big 12 are going to be able to execute on, you know, when the receiver wins by a step, can we execute on that? Can we still punish the cornerback for losing in man coverage, even if it's only a step? And I don't, you know, there's not probably many guys in this conference outside of Shador and, you know, maybe Avery Johnson that have that arm talent to really make defenses pay. And so, you know, there's not much incentive for them to get out of man coverage other than the fact that the linebackers and the safeties tend to get put in a blender when they get stuck in that man coverage.
Yeah, I don't want to beat that too much. I think Livingston does a great job adjusting as the game goes on too. So like, yeah. I don't think that it's ever going to be a full game problem if it is in fact a problem on a few different drives. Which is great. I think just coaching talent wise, CU also has an advantage here too. And that, I guess maybe that's inflammatory, maybe not, but I think Livingston, I have more faith in Livingston than I definitely do with Zach Kitley. And then I have more faith in Pat Shurmur than I do with Texas Tech on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm blanking on this guy's name, so I'm looking it up while I'm stalling, and I'm just going to call this out while I'm doing it.
But, hear the click, 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 click.
It's Tim DeRuyter, that's right. Duh. It's Tim DeRuyter, which should be a somewhat familiar name to CU fans. He was at Air Force forever. But I think that I trust CU's coaching more than I trust Texas Tech's coaching. And I trust CU's talent more than I trust Texas Tech's talent. And I think that's a really good combination to have.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really where they've set themselves apart from a lot of these teams. You know, we might be a step or two ahead on talent, but, you know, some of these games where we pull away by 2 or 3 possessions, you can almost directly draw that back to Livingston throwing very confusing looks defensively, and to Pat Shurmur. As the season's gone on, I think he's gotten more comfortable with his playmakers. And the passing game, I mean, the routes that these receivers are running and the ability to create space in the secondary is second to none at the college level. And there's no other team in the Big 12 that has a coaching staff like this. And so, like Jack said, that should give Colorado fans another level of comfortability when going into a big game like this. Is just that not only are we potentially better at personnel, but the coaching staff is always going to adapt. They're always going to make changes. And they're going to do a really good job of putting their guys in a position to succeed. And I think Shador has done an increasingly better job at that as well as the season's gone on. One thing I've noticed is just the ball placement to Will Shepherd, putting the ball up in the rafters so that Will Shepherd can go get it. Throwing those back shoulder fades to him to a point where only he can catch it. The cornerback doesn't have an opportunity to make a play on that ball. And I think we've seen a lot of, kind of bonding in this offense between Wester, Shepherd, Shador, and Pat Shurmur. I think Pat Shurmur is able to trust these guys to go out and make these big time plays now. And the offense has really come together in a fantastic way. And I really think in a lot of ways, this passing game is second to none in the Big 12, and it could stack up against just about anyone in the nation right now with their diversity play calling wise and just the personnel they have out there.
Yeah, and talking. You go, Jack.
Semi off topic question, but I also do you guys think there's anything to the road home splits? Like we know that the scoring margin away versus home games right now is insane, right? CU has just demolished teams on the road. Part of that's team quality and blah blah blah. Is there anything to that in your all's mind? Like I don't know how much I want to put anything to that playing at home with distractions versus going on the road, but it seems to me like CU definitely starts better ever since that Nebraska game when they're playing on the road.
So yeah, I do want to say I think there is, and I think half of it is playing away. This team feeds off of the negativity that they get, like that they live for that. So that's an extra motivator, I think, for sure, and it plays a factor. But I think the biggest factor is the start time of the away games. If you go look after that Nebraska game, UCF was an afternoon game. Arizona was an afternoon game. What other game am I forgetting?
I mean, Colorado State.
Those are the only two conference road games.
Yeah. So both of those, and Dion has said that this team is not like built to play at night, or not like that, but he prefers to play earlier in the day. He's like, it messes up our whole schedule when we kick off at 8 p.m. And we've only had 2 normal start times, and it was Baylor and NDSU. That 8 p.m. slot, I think, is just tough for them to play in because it throws their schedule out of whack so much. I think that tomorrow, though, like it's going to be business as usual. The morning and afternoon games is, I think, where this team is going to thrive, regardless of location. And it's just a bummer that we haven't seen that yet at Folsom, but soon we will next weekend.
I think the quality of opponent has something to do with it. With us playing on the road at UCF, at Arizona, those teams had a lot of holes, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, and I'm willing to say that. I said it before the game even. Arizona is just flat out terrible. And this isn't a shot at anyone in specific, Noah Fafita, but
we're never gonna accept to do it. We're never gonna accept to do it to give it to Tucson now.
And one thing that we haven't talked about with these road games is Canvas Stadium, Colorado State. That game, Canvas Stadium's only going to get so loud. I was at probably a dozen, maybe 24 games at Canvas State when I was at Colorado State, and it has never gotten over about a 4 or a 5 and how loud it can get. UCF, I think there was some other factors, but Colorado took them out of the game so quick, and I think ultimately KJ Jefferson was just not a good quarterback. And then you go to Arizona, and Noah Fafita took them out of the game, did not produce. So the closest game I think you could compare this game at Texas Tech to is Nebraska, unfortunately. And with Ryland and I being there, I sort of, when Dion said it didn't matter, and he said they weren't really preparing for the noise in that Nebraska game, but I do sort of think it had a factor on the game. I mean, does Shador throw that pick that early in the game, that pick six, if the stadium isn't shaking?
Yeah.
I don't know. And so that, that does worry me a little bit, that this team tends to disregard the noise element offensively. And it looked like at times they were unprepared, and maybe they were a little bit out of sync. And so I hope this time that they've prepared a little bit better, because I think this Texas Tech game is going to be the second loudest environment they've played in this year.
Probably, but I do want to add on to that by saying that Nebraska game was something special. I talked to one of
Is
the.
It fair to say it was a Super Bowl? Is that fair to say?
Matt Rule had spent like basically a full year preparing for that game. It was their Super Bowl, but I talked to one of the longtime writers for this team. I don't want to say who, but they said that they have never seen anything like that in their years of covering college football. Like nothing compared to that environment. It was by far the best sports environment they've ever been in. It was just insane, and it was probably the most hostile environment. I got chirped by the student section for just having a CU logo on my shirt.
Yeah.
Like that was crazy. They said the only thing that compared to was when they went to Michigan.
And you remember, I mean, Ryland and I were down there on the field there in the last couple minutes of the game, and when Shador took that head injury, came off the field,
they were throwing like vodka bottles at him, and
yeah. I mean, Shador was getting hit with trash and balls.
But they're the classiest fans.
They are best fans in college football. It says all over the stadium.
Yeah, and then as he walks off the field, you've got hundreds. I kid you not, hundreds of people doing the Shador wrist thing to him as he walks off the field. That was the most hostile environment I've ever seen in a professional setting, in a college setting, in any setting. And so Texas Tech is not going to be that. It's not going to be the way it was in Lincoln.
So you're telling me that them throwing tortillas does not compare to them throwing vodka bottles at Shador?
And I guess to give Nebraska credit, I think that game changed this team in the best possible way, right?
Yeah.
Even if they are kind of like that, this team is different because of that Nebraska game, to the point where I don't know what they could do to get them that much out of sorts now. Second game of the year against that, I could, absolutely. But Texas Tech straight up just doesn't have the volume that Nebraska does, and also just doesn't have the hate in their heart. Maybe if CU came out with like an upside down American flag, given recent events in the fan base, but like that's all so contrived anyway. There's just no way that there's not going to be the same malice, and I don't know. I think there is something to CU. I shouldn't even say CU. I think there's something specifically to Shador, who loves to play in front of people booing him. Like I think he loves to play in front of people booing him. So. I think Travis Hunter's wired the same way. I think a lot of it has to do with like the scoring margin. All of that's opponent quality. Arizona was a broken team. UCF couldn't throw the ball. Yeah. But I do also think that CU is more focused when people hate them in front of their face. I think that's something that's the way this team is built.
Yeah, and also, a big thing that I don't think that is not maybe as talked about as much as it should be with this team is Ryland and I have noticed, and I think, everyone else has probably noticed that's in this fan base. This team isn't a team that got better, and we heard this asked to Dion. Oh, someone's asked Dion, do you think the most improvement happens between week 1 and week 2? And Dion said, I don't know who says that. And realistically, with this team having almost 60 transfers coming in, we knew that there was going to be a bonding kind of stage that needed to go on. And they had that tough loss against Nebraska and then a big win against Colorado State. And ever since then, every week it's been incremental steps from a play calling standpoint, from a personnel standpoint. They found a way to get better every single week. And I don't think there's a lot of teams in college football that find a way to get better every single week and become more congruent every single week. So that's something that's very exciting to me. And Ryland and I are wondering, can they keep getting better? Can we keep getting more? Can we keep getting great play from these third and fourth stringers, on defense, like Colton Hood and in the
Stoutmeyer,
yeah, and in the
Wade.
Wade in the pass rush. I mean, we've gotten we've gotten phenomenal play from backups, and it allows our starters to be rotated. And when your backups come into the game and are able to win reps against starters on the other team, I mean, my gosh, talk about a confidence boost for your guys. That's what I'm wondering. Does this team keep getting better? Do they keep taking a step forward? And they're going to have to if they want to be able to have a chance to play for the conference championship. And I think that'll be the biggest thing to watch these next couple weeks is, do they keep taking steps forward, or do they kind of plateau?
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to skeet out soon, so I'm just gonna open up with all barrels. But
No, you're good.
So I'm just gonna hot take it, and I would say like that's a great question for larger aspirations, but for the next 4 weeks, I would argue that they really don't have to get better every week for them to still accomplish their goals. They just need to hold steady. CU is a 4.5-point favorite in this game, and that's from late movement, I think, after some of that defensive line stuff started coming out for Texas Tech. This is by far, I think, the hardest on paper matchup left. I'm still very scared of Kansas, as should everyone else, in my opinion, but I'm still very scared of them. And what that means is they're still favorites on the road after a top 10 win from Texas Tech. That should tell us something about where this team is, at least from what we call third-party observers. And in my opinion, Vegas still underrates CU consistently because models don't really know what to do with how this team is built still. Like it's still catching up, I think, to how CU operates. So, I would argue that I would love to see them get better week after week, and we have seen great growth that we didn't see last year, which is huge. I don't even know if it's necessary, man. Like, I think what we haven't seen, honestly, in the last few weeks, do any of us in this call really think Shedeur Sanders played his best game this year yet? I don't. Like, I don't think so.
I think we got we have a TCU level showing coming. I think that's brewing.
I wouldn't even say TCU was his best game last year. I think they were like USC in the second half, even though it was a loss. Like Shedeur Sanders was getting destroyed, and when he wasn't on the ground, he was throwing touchdowns. Like that was what was happening. I think Shedeur has been incredibly consistent and very good. I don't think we've seen his best yet. Like I still think there's a game where he is just unimpeachable. Like there's still a game coming where no one's going to be able to touch him. Everything's going right, and he has some time. And that's why I think CU gets really, really scary. The other thing I'm thinking about is CU has 4 weeks to make the case that Travis Hunter is, in fact, the Heisman Trophy winner this year, right? And Deion Sanders is the type of coach, for better or for worse, that's going to absolutely say, all right, we're going to rise to the moment, kid. Like, we're going to force feed you.
Yeah.
Like, they care about the accolades. It's not about winning the game sometimes. Always about winning the game, but he absolutely cares about making sure that there's the accolades behind it, or that the people who deserve celebration to get celebrated. Yeah. And put all that together, and I think it can get kind of scary. Travis Hunter is healthy, incredibly healthy from what we can tell. The healthiest he's been since maybe week 3 or 4 this year. Shedeur Sanders has not had his complete takeover game. Maybe the second half of Baylor, there's been halves, but there's going to be a game when that all clicks, and we're going to see Travis Hunter get targeted 15 times, and we're going to see Travis Hunter play every snap, and that's almost always great news for CU, right? Has that ever been bad when Travis Hunter gets 15 targets? I can't think of a time when we overfed Travis Hunter. Maybe last year there were some times when we need to spread the ball out, but all of this to say, I feel confident going into this game, probably more than I should, but I feel confident. I think a lot of that is just, to Jake's point, team vibes. I think CU is getting better every week. I think CU is an incredibly close locker room where there's very clear leadership. Unlike last year, I think it's very easy to tell it's a cohesive unit, and it's really easy to tell who's the leaders, right? Cam Sumlin-Craig is the leader on defense. That is the guy. And there's also some other people in there up front and otherwise, right? On offense, it's Shedeur. It's easy to tell. And we still have not seen the best from our best yet. And that's the part that gets exciting to me, is we still have not seen what we can do with 4 weeks left of Travis Hunter. We're that is going to get squeezed out. We are going to absolutely try to get everything we can out of those 4 weeks. And I said, I think Shedeur Sanders has been fantastic this year. But have we really seen him transcend yet? I'm not so sure. And I think he still has that in him. Add all that together, I'm sounding like an incredible homer, I'm sure. But there's going to be a week, and it might be this week when Texas Tech secondary is essentially a wet tortilla, right? Like maybe this is the week where we just say Travis Hunter's going to get open in 0.5 seconds every goddamn snap. Let's just throw him the ball a million times and let's see what happens, right? And do you lose in that situation? I don't think that's a losing combination.
Yeah, we got rolling with Ben here saying QB1 might do 400 yards. QB1 might do 500 yards tomorrow, brother. We might, we might get some like real crazy shit happening tomorrow. And thank you for subscribing. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I kind of want to flash back a little bit to what Jake was saying earlier, and even flashing back earlier. Do you remember after the Nebraska game, before the CSU game, when you came on the podcast and we were like, should we start panicking? And you were like, no, let's think about 2001. This team got shithoused by Fresno State, and they learned the lessons they needed to learn from Fresno State from that game, and they got better every week. Are we in the same exact position right now?
Yeah, and that was Jack's best take of the year.
That was you called like that was like Babe Ruth calling his shot.
Yeah, I mean, this is what unhealthy obsessions get you. Is you're right, like 5% of the time. So take no kids, it's worth it. Yeah, some differences, obviously, in like style, right? That team got destroyed and then figured out that they're just gonna run everyone over. CU is not doing that, though Augustine's trying his best. But absolutely, right? Lesson learned the really hard way in the second week, and maybe that's what you needed, is the lesson learned the hardest way possible, because then it keeps getting learned every week. Where and maybe you guys disagree with this too. I don't think there's been another team that's out physical CU since that week. I think CU's been the harder hitting team in every week since.
You can make an argument for Kansas State, I think.
But ultimately, I mean, I think we were the better team, top to bottom, like in that game. You know?
Absolutely. They just got DJ Giddens just got destroyed.
I don't know. We got lucky though. We got lucky too. I don't know.
We got lucky, and then they got. Well, I wouldn't say they got lucky. They rolled out with press man.
Yeah,
I don't know. That was just a weird game, and one that, like, not because we lost. I just am kind of like I'm like cleaning the slate with that game. Like, that was a really fluky game for both sides. Like, a lot of weird shit happened.
The biggest fluke of that game was the fact that Travis Hunter didn't play.
True.
The whole last three quarters. And the thing, if you lose Will Shepherd, it's one thing, but when you lose Travis Hunter, you lose two players. He's the best graded player
on both sides of the ball
for this team by PFF, and he's a top 5 player at wide receiver and cornerback in the entire country according to PFF. So when you lose Travis Hunter, to me, you lose you lose your two best players. And so that game, to me, it was weird, but if Travis Hunter plays, to me, we win that game, because Preston Hodge would not have been playing outside the numbers in no scenario. And the only reason I think they had Preston Hodge outside the numbers, not at nickelback, is
because Travis got hurt. They just needed a body.
Simply because I don't think they had built that rapport with Colton Hood yet. They didn't, and there was a lot of confusion in the secondary, and there was a lot of confusion in the secondary with this team in multiple games early on in the season. And when things went bad, you saw linebackers and other cornerbacks looking over at Travis doing this, and Travis would point. And without that, you lose your vocal leader, and you also just lose your guy who can play on an island, and it messed up every role. And they didn't know Colton Hood could step into that role yet.
So, once again, I am going to fight some of this too. I think Travis Hunter is an incredible player, and when he goes out, obviously, CU is worse. That's like, I don't want to, of course, obviously. CU was down 3 in the Kansas State game, and Shedeur Sanders threw a pick at the 10-yard line, right? I think about that all the time. That's his worst throw of his career. Like, he has not had a pick that bad. So,
Nebraska pick 6 was pretty bad.
That was pretty bad, but this one was like 20 yards above the receiver is going. Like, it was, something went wrong, right? And so, not to keep bringing it back to the Kansas State game, because we're not, who cares? We lost that game by 3, and Kansas State's a really good team, but CU gave away that game many times and still had a chance to win at the end, even without Travis Hunter. So I think that that saying that losing Travis Hunter hurts, and it absolutely does. If CU loses Travis Hunter for the rest of the year, that hurts, obviously. Like, that's going to make CU a worse team. But the difference, the huge difference between 2023 CU and 2024 CU is look at everyone else, right? Like, everyone else to me is a plus player. A lot of people are plus players of their position across the board. And you combine that with finally an offensive line that is, I would say, we're getting dangerously near average levels, folks. Like, we're almost like middle of the pack here, which is crazy, right?
Jordan Stevens alone is taking us there, man.
Yeah, he's incredible. And somehow rotating guards every series is working. Like, I don't understand that at all, but it's like doing better than we see guys before. Like, that to me is the more exciting piece. So I totally agree with you, Jake, and that's the huge reason why CU is not undefeated right now. But there's other reasons CU isn't undefeated right now too. And in the same token, like, CU, in my opinion, at that game, CU had no reason to be in that game. Like, they were down 10 in the fourth quarter, and DJ Giddens was running for 1,000,000 yards. So the fact that CU was fighting at all was a testament to the team and a lot of really good luck. And everything after that, we just got to take advantage. That's what the next 4 weeks is despite that loss, CU's in a really good spot. Can it work? And I think I see no reason why it can't.
Yeah. Do you want to do predictions? Also, this random guy who may or may not be my father says, "Is that a cat maze behind Jack?" Cool. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. I drilled into a accidental pipe guard for this, so they love it and it's worth it.
That's not good.
No,
it's worth it for the cats.
It wasn't good. No, I slept in this room that night because I wanted to make sure I didn't smell gas. Because gas pipes are behind that. Anyways, predictions: CU -4.5. I think over under 62. Last I checked, that might be low.
Mm-hmm. Still accurate.
Okay, I'm going to take the CU team over. I'm going to take the CU -4.5. I think CU is going to hit 40 this game.
I do too.
And I think let's do 42-28.
Okay. So I was gonna do 42-24.
Wow.
That was, I think that this might be your routing. This might be a UCF-er.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think and so if you guys read the preview article I did, just ignore my score prediction on there. I think I went 30-24. I'm not super happy with that.
You did 35.
No, I think it was 31-24
okay.
maybe.
Yeah.
I don't like that anymore. I think I'd like to go, like 35 if I'm allowed to change.
If
I'm not allowed to change, then it's locked in.
You can't go back and change it. No.
I think I'd like to go, I keep referencing this stat. I want to say all but 2 games of this season, we've been within a few points of being at 28 points. I still think that's going to hold true, except I think instead of 4 touchdowns this game, I think we score 5. So I'm going to go 35-24, which is right around that over under, which would be it'd be close.
We're getting there. That's pretty close.
I still think Livingston's averaging, or the CU defense is averaging 7.5 points in the second half given up all year. Cincinnati beat that with 9. So
they were just playing not to lose.
Yeah. The big wild card is now that CU has a little bit of a grading run game, maybe they just try to pound this shit out and keep Texas Tech's offense off the field. I don't know, man. We know how CU. That's not how Deion Sanders operates, though. Do we really? I can't imagine that's how CU operates. It would make sense.
It opens up the passing game so much, though, which they've been talking about how important it is to at least be able to run the ball when you need to run the ball. And at this point in time, we can run the ball when we need to run the ball. Augusta has been more or less a game changer.
Is Welch back? Do we know?
I don't know. They haven't said anything, but I'm assuming he talked about a couple players. Deion Hayes is out.
Yeah.
So no Deion Hayes. He did not say anything about Michael Welch. Okay. I know it's a hamstring thing, though.
Yeah, and that's always tricky.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, unfortunately I have to leave a little bit early, but that's my prediction.
You're good. We appreciate you joining us.
Yes, and that is the cat maze behind me. And I think see you for the nation, right? We'll have to win on Saturday. If I'm reading the argument correctly, online, I think this is for the nation. So, I think it'll be a blowout. I have Lubbock facts, but I don't know. They all are not as exciting as Cincinnati, so who cares? And I'll leave it at that. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man. We appreciate you. You're always welcome to come on. Take care.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay, now it's just us again. We
Get him
lost
out of
him.
here.
We lost him. Okay, who we always do player.
Always
Player
do
of the
players
game
well,
prediction.
and this is probably a good time to let you guys know that this is usually when we also do Q&A. So if you guys want to throw any questions in the chat,
Pop them in. We'll answer them.
throw them in the chat. We'll probably wrap up here in the next 10 or 20 minutes. So, throw some questions in the chat. We'll talk about some key players, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, that's the plan. So, okay, I'll let you go first. I'll be courteous. Who are you picking?
Key players. This offense has really taken a different shape than I would have thought. I did not expect LeJohntay Wester to really establish himself to the extent that he has. Yeah, I thought he'd be a
chain mover, man.
I thought he'd be a good option, but my gosh, is he involved in this offense just about every single play. And so I'd love to sit here and say, Jimmy Horn's going to have a big game. I feel like, and Jimmy Horn did have that big play. He did the Tyreek Hill, and I've never seen, and I've never.
I didn't
seen
know that was a thing. That I didn't even realize you could call back a touchdown for taunting mid-play.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. I thought that you could. They just, at least in the NFL, I think you just tack it on the end of the extra point, and it's like a 40-yard extra point for Mata.
Right.
But yeah.
So that was an interesting one. And then Jimmy was very apologetic after that. They kept going to him later in that game. He was on the field, so there wasn't any love lost between Prime and or Shermer and Jimmy Horn. So I do think he'll have be a factor in this game. But I honestly think that key player is just Shador. I think he's going to look to all of those guys. And this is a lame take, but like we've been talking about, I think Shador seriously could be up above 350 or 400 yards potentially. Look for Shador to just absolutely light the scoreboard up here, especially as the game moves on.
I am going to copy you. I'm not going to say Travis Hunter. I'm kind of you talked about Jimmy Horn. That's why I'm copying you. Okay. I'm not going to also say Shador because that's lame.
Okay.
I'm going to say Jimmy Horn. There has been talk. Deanna said in press conferences that they need to get Jimmy more involved, and it's just hard when you have 4 amazing receivers like that. Like the ball can't find those players on every single play, and everyone's going to have their night. And I think there's a conscious effort being made to feed Jimmy. Like Jimmy needs to be more involved, and Jimmy is good enough that if he gets involved, he can take over a game. We saw it against North Dakota State, and I'm gonna keep sitting here. I think this is the 2nd or 3rd week in a row I've said Jimmy Horn, but it's going to happen at some point. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And with this Texas Tech secondary, I think it could happen this week.
Yeah, and Jimmy Horn's a great mismatch for just about anyone. He's always going to be the fastest player on the field.
Yeah.
Match him up against just about anybody in the country, and he's going to be the fastest player on the field. So I think if you're going to look for another, it's been since week 1 since we saw him have a breakout performance. It's been since North Dakota State. So I think if there was going to be a week, it would be this week. But, throw a dart, Will Shepherd being that big target for them. LeJohntay Wester has just been unbelievably productive as a chain mover and as a red zone threat. And then there's always Travis Hunter. So, throw a dart at the dartboard. Any of these guys could have a monster day. And we might see 2 receivers over 100 yards.
We might see more than 2 receivers.
We could see 3 receivers over 100 yards if the ball gets spread.
I'm going to jinx us. I feel really confident, and I feel like I'm going to jinx us, but I do feel pretty good headed in tomorrow.
Yeah, and I feel good. And I said this against Nebraska, and it rang true. I think the only way that we lose this game is if we find a way to get behind early.
Yeah.
If we get behind early, we show our hand. We're going to have to pass. Things could go south, and not only that, but that's going to allow Texas Tech to drain the clock, rely on Taj Brooks, and control the time of possession, which in the 2 games we've lost, Kansas State and Nebraska, we lost the time of possession battle significantly because of that run game.
hard to play catch up when you only throw the ball.
Yep. Really hard to play
Yeah.
catch up. So, if we win the coin toss, I say take the ball. Let's go let Shador get a touchdown on the board. And, let's play with a lead. Let's play with a lead in Lubbock. I think that's how we win this game. And I think that's how we establish ourselves and get out to a potentially a big lead and maybe even the second quarter. That's how we win this game. And that's the only way I think we lose this game, because I do think we're mismatched on a coaching level and on a personnel level. I think we're the better team. What else we got?
Yeah. Do you want to do best bets?
Best bets.
I don't know. I haven't really looked at, but I can look real quick.
What do we have?
What do we have? Let me see. The only one that I'm like browsing really quickly in the Florida-Texas line, the spread on that is Texas is favored by 21.5 points. That seems like a lot to me. It seems like Florida's starting to hit their stride. Line on that is -112. I like that. I like Florida covering, which is crazy for me to say Florida's going to cover the spread against Texas. If you told me I was going to say that like a month and a half ago, I would have laughed at you. That's one off rip that I like. A pretty sicko one that I think could be interesting is Texas State at ULM. ULM is 8.5-point underdogs against Texas State. Texas State is good. Texas State is scary, but ULM is one of the most underrated group of 5 teams in the country, I'd say. They have a quarterback named General Booty. So if you are a real General Bootier, you can get involved in that and have a reason. They're also, what's their record? I forget what the record is, but there's some sicko stuff going on in Monroe, Louisiana. I'm not super. I don't want to pretend like I know a whole ton about them because I'm not watching a lot of Sun Belt football. Unfortunately, I wish I had the time to. But
maybe we could go through the Big 12 games this week because they.
We can do a pick 'em.
Yeah, let's talk about the Big 12
games. We
can
do picks and then we can compare.
Yeah,
Okay.
So a couple teams on bye this week, but we've got West Virginia at Cincinnati. That's going to kick off at 11 a.m. That's going to be the early slot for the Big 12.
I like Cincinnati in that game.
I like Cincinnati too.
I don't think Garrett Green's back.
Right.
So I think Cincinnati will probably blow the doors off.
Yeah.
I think that West Virginia, they have some problems. And I don't know if Wyatt Milam's back either. It's just that West Virginia team is just not there.
Yeah. And Cincinnati, they're good on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
They run the ball well. They throw the ball pretty well. And that defense, they play sound as a unit. They swarm the ball. It's 11 men to the ball every single play.
Big East matchup.
Colorado really put it on Cincinnati for the most part, other than the second half when we kind of sat on our hands. But Cincinnati's, I'd say, an above-average Big 12 team. I do like the way Cincinnati plays football. Then at 2:30, we've got Iowa State at Kansas.
Kansas has the opportunity to do the funniest thing.
Yeah, do you think this is a trap game for Kansas?
Well, it's a trap game for sure. But I do think that Iowa State is probably good enough to pull this off. They're only favored by 2.5 points.
Yeah, and so that kind of tells you what the nation thinks of Kansas
right now. I think that Kansas is a way better team than their record suggests. I will say that. Jalen Daniels he was awful for like 5 games and then stopped throwing picks, kind of got it together. That Kansas secondary is horrifying. Yeah. I don't know if you like Mello Dotson and Kobe Bryant are so good.
Yeah.
So I don't know that could get interesting. They're gonna make Rocco Beck's life miserable.
Yeah.
So
and I you do wonder if Iowa State, how do they adapt to losing such a close, heartbreaking game to Texas Tech last week?
Do you want to hear a little fun fact?
Let's do it.
I don't know. This might be from last week. I'm not too sure if it holds up now, but it held up last week for sure. Kansas has had a fourth quarter lead in every single one of the games that they've lost.
Wow.
So better than the record suggests for sure.
Yeah. And if you're a bettor, if you're looking at betting games,
that's a good money line to take is Kansas money line.
Yeah. And don't throw your house
on it. Don't take out a second mortgage
and
put it on Kansas.
Do not do that. I have told people this year to put a second mortgage on the Air Force games, and I was right. You guys would have won big.
Okay.
Sicko. But I will say if you're going to bet games, don't look at record, look at point differential, look at how they've performed against better teams, and see if they've been within a score or not late in the game. So that might be the trap game of the week. I think that game could be close, and I think as Colorado fans, we need
do us a solid, Kansas. You're gonna beat our ass in basketball, so please help us in football.
Yeah, we need it. That would really, if we can win against Texas Tech, and if Kansas finds a way to upset Iowa State, that would really go a long way into establishing Colorado as that number 2 team right now behind BYU. And there's probably arguments that would say that Colorado is actually a better team than BYU potentially. BYU's had, some close games against some inferior teams like Oklahoma State a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, they needed a last second walk-off miracle touchdown.
Yeah, I mean,
so I don't know, and I don't know. BYU is actually pretty good though. BYU, I'm willing to call BYU legit.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know if BYU's top 10 team in the country legit, but BYU is a legit playoff contender.
Number 9's high. Number 9's that's high for them.
A lot of that is because Iowa State lost. And
yeah,
they need to put a Big 12 team up there.
Yeah, and we'll get to that game later. We'll talk about BYU in a little bit. The next game we jump to the 6 o'clock window. Actually, and these are Central Time since we're in Texas.
Yeah.
So for all of you guys that are watching in Colorado, it would be 10 and 1:30 for those first 2 games, and then this game will start at 5 for you guys. UCF at Arizona State.
Arizona State should kill them.
Yeah, and we'll have to check up that backup quarterback that replaced KJ Jefferson for UCF was playing out of his mind.
Name?
I don't know, but he looked phenomenal.
Jacurri something.
Yeah,
Jacurri Brown.
I will say I don't. He was out last week. I don't know if he's playing in that game.
Cam Scadaboo is going to just run them over.
Yeah. So smart man. I'd say Arizona State's a good pick, but if UCF gets that quarterback in there, and they're not with that 3rd string guy, and even if they are with the 3rd string guy, they could keep this game close, and I could see UCF ultimately pulling this game out, especially if that quarterback is playing. Then we jump another game at the same time, 5 o'clock. It's going to be Oklahoma State at TCU. You'd have to be a sicko to have any kind of information to think Oklahoma State's going to beat TCU at home.
It's not happening. Oklahoma State might lose every single conference game this year.
Yeah,
it's just a broken team. They don't have a quarterback. The offensive line isn't blocking to the level that we thought. So it's making Ollie Gordon's life miserable to work on the ground. It's just they just don't have it together.
Yeah. So look at TCU, and then the late game, and this is going to be the best game probably, unless the Colorado Texas Tech games ends up being close. The best game on Saturday is probably going to be the late window, which will be 8:15, which is so brutal for you guys.
Thank God it's not us though.
Yeah, thank God it's not us for once.
They've put us to the fire. We've been forged in these fires of the 8:15 Big 12 times.
Yeah, and someone needs to tell them.
Do you think the conference knows that just because we're in the Pac-12, we're not in Pacific time? Do you think they've figured that out yet?
I think maybe they're figuring it out now, but I honestly think it's just because they want everyone in the nation tuned into Colorado football. It
makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. It's just a bummer for me personally because that means I have to stay up till about 3 to 4 in the morning. Those days.
Ryland and I leave the stadium at probably 1:30 to 2 in the morning. It's brutal.
Yeah, it's not fun.
But not us this week. BYU at Utah. Do you think and I know that you think that there is there an outside chance that Utah can upset BYU here and do Colorado another solid?
Utah football, if you're listening to me, you've brought me nothing but pain for the last 11 years. I have endured some of the most embarrassing losses, just getting destroyed by your football team. You owe us one for what we've allowed you to do to us. Please help. Please help us. And Jake and I were talking about this earlier, and these games, the Holy War, these games just get weird. I don't think that Utah has nothing to play for other than bowl eligibility at this point, and they were expected to win this conference. This is going to be a really easy one to rally the troops around. I don't know when the last time. Let me look this up, but it's been a long time since they played a Holy War game. I want to say it's been 9 or 10 years.
These
These games tend to get weird, and I anticipate that this gets weird. I just hope that Utah ends up on top. This will probably be the most hostile environment any BYU player has ever played in.
Yeah, it will be. And
in a conference game.
And this will be a real test for Utah here. This is going to be. This is going to make
BYU's good. Like that defensive line is real. And what is his name? Retzloff, the Jake Retzloff, the quarterback's good. We were talking about quarterbacks who can really beat people over the top earlier. Retzloff can beat people over the top.
Yeah.
And then they have, I forget their running backs' names. They have 2 good running backs. They have good wide receivers. It's a pretty solid team throughout.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think there's any reason on paper to think that Utah, like if you're betting on this game, I don't think there's any reason to think that Utah is actually going to win it. But you never know. I'd love to see Utah do it. And so BYU, they probably win, but let's see. And the thing that I'm worried about with Utah is you don't go from being ranked top 10 in the nation to just being terrible. Like it's not like every player on the Utah roster extracted some rare disease and is just terrible at football now. Like as if what's that Space Jam? What's the Space Jam? Like as if their like power got stolen at halftime by Michael Jordan. Like that didn't happen to the Utah team. They still have some ball players. So I think if I was BYU, I'd be a hair worried. And I think as a Colorado fan playing Utah later in the season, that's not a gimme. As bad as Utah's been these last few weeks, it's not a gimme. They still have good players on that roster. And Utah, if they can get, Isaac Wilson or
Isaac Wilson.
Isaac Wilson. If
Zach Wilson's little brother.
Yeah, if he can figure it out, or maybe they even have to go to the third string. If they can get decent, and I don't need good play, but if they can get decent play at the quarterback position, they can compete with nearly anybody in the Big 12 outside of maybe Colorado with BYU.
I have to go make a correction. I lied. It hasn't been since 2015 since BYU and Utah played. It's been since 2021, and they play each other about every other year. Okay. So I lied, but now that'll be a yearly thing in this conference. But it's pretty, Utah's dominated that series pretty recently. But in 2021, BYU won. So BYU won the most recent game. Interesting. Yeah. Utah has good players. Like Micah Bernard's awesome. Dorian Singer's awesome. The talent, even without Cam Rising, I would say the talent on BYU or on Utah's roster trumps the talent on BYU's roster, but we've seen BYU beat teams with good talent, like Arizona. They beat Arizona. I mean, that talent is T-Mac.
Okay.
T-Mac's gonna get picked in the top.
I'm the biggest Arizona hater out there right now. Like I think they're actually quite awful. Like I'm probably taking Oklahoma State.
Noah Fifita's good, but he just doesn't work in Brent Brennan's system. I think that he needs to probably go and play. He needs to go to Washington.
Yeah, and realistically,
he needs to go play for Jetfish again.
Noah Fifita, I've thrown a lot of shade Noah Fifita's way, but he's not as bad as I.
No, he doesn't work as like the pocket passer that Brent Brennan wants him to be.
Right.
They need him to go. Like he needs a coach that's going to let him be dynamic and create out of structure, and that's just not what Arizona is.
Yeah, and I could see him being successful with Washington.
Yeah,
who knows in this conference?
We need a Noah Fifita reuniting with Jetfish.
Yeah, I could see him being good on a team like Texas Tech. Like a team that's going to throw the ball, spread the field, and a spread or air raid offense. Like Noah Fifita, his ability to keep the play alive and keep things alive. And his supporting cast isn't great, but he protects the ball for the most part. He's had some ugly picks. That's a lot of it O-line, a lot of it miscommunication. But Noah Fifita is a decent player, I'll say. He's decent. He's not going to be an NFL guy. You're not going to see him every Sunday. But yeah, he is too small, and his arm.
We're seeing the issues with small quarterbacks. Carolina is specifically.
And I wouldn't say that his arm is particularly impressive either. He can be accurate at times, but I'd say overall arm power, his ability to push the ball into tight windows and throw the ball down the field, it's just not there. You see a lot of times he'll try to fit the ball into his zone coverage, and it's a throw that Shador actually probably makes. it's a throw Noah Fifita can't make. He doesn't put enough zip on the ball to fit it into those tight windows, and ultimately the corner or the safety will jump that route and be a pick. And so balls that are good throws for other quarterbacks end up being worse throws for Noah Fifita. And so it's all about system for him going forward. And so I'd love to see Noah Fifita succeed. And so for as much shade as I've thrown his way, I think over here at Ralphie Report, we're ultimately Noah Fifita fans, and we'd love to see him do well, whether or not it's with Arizona or not.
Yeah, for real.
For real.
Is there anything else?
No.
I think we did a pretty good job.
Maybe we hang out for another 45 seconds or a minute. We see if anyone's got questions.
Yeah, if you got questions, this is your last chance.
And then we're going to be out of here.
We're going to go get dinner somewhere.
Somewhere. And
we got barbecue for lunch. It's pretty damn good.
The Texas barbecue out here is phenomenal, guys.
Thumbs up.
Last thing, and maybe this is jumping the gun a little bit. We have been in talks with DJ McKinney potentially. We might be,
that's potential, but that's not confirmed yet.
Not confirmed. Very early on in the process, but it's
leak.
Yeah, leak. It's looking like we might
have a DJ McKinney interview next week.
The pod next week
potentially
could be DJ McKinney. That would be awesome for us.
We're working on that.
So we'll probably post something DJ McKinney related this week, and then hopefully we'll have him on the pod next week, which would just be phenomenal. He's
so good. He's so good.
He's
like, I can't believe that. Yeah, I can't believe he got him.
Yeah,
I can't believe that Oregon didn't just go and offer him like $1 million bag. They might have, and he chose us.
Right, and maybe it was that. Maybe there was a promise there. You're going to get to be on an island.
Yeah.
We're going to keep you in man coverage.
They kept it. They kept their promise. If so, they kept their promise, and it worked out great.
It has worked out great. And if you're a young cornerback, you want to be.
And he's only not to throw you under the bus, but you were like, he's a senior, right? And I was like, no, dog, he's a sophomore. He's young.
Right. Yeah, and as a young cornerback in college football, you want to put film on tape.
Yeah.
There's no better way to put film on tape than to play man coverage.
Play man coverage in a power conference against pretty good receivers. Every single time you line up, you're usually playing against a pretty good receiver.
I've really only seen him lose 2 routes all year. I think both of them were against Baylor. Both of them were against Baylor's top guy, phenomenal receiver.
And they literally, I don't think they played zone one time in that game.
No, I mean, he probably played 70 snaps, 80 snaps, 75 snaps, and he lost maybe 2 routes, and he lost by a step. And the nice thing about DJ McKinney is, he's not going to get handsy. He's not going to pull you. He's going to get his head around. Like, that's the coolest thing, and something you don't see in college. If you lose in man coverage, you typically see a holding penalty or something come in. DJ McKinney almost always finds a way to get his head around, get his hand up, and make a play on the ball clean. So he's just been phenomenal. And so to have him on the pod next week would be spectacular.
Would be cool. We're working on it. We're still a work in progress.
We're stoked about that, but potentially DJ McKinney. And then, as the season progresses, as this media hype train ramps up, hopefully we'll win the Texas Tech and it keeps going this way. But as the media train hypes up, and everyone starts to flock towards Colorado again, with the Heisman voting coming up and all this sort of stuff, we could see Ralphie Report really get some good opportunities here in the next week. So
keep up with us. Follow us on Twitter and follow us on the website. We usually have an article or 2 every day.
Yep.
We have good journalistic stuff. We got goofy stuff. We got game breakdowns. We got film breakdowns. Like, we got everything you want. Like, this is the place to be. So be there.
No questions in the chat. No questions in the chat. We'll
I gotta go eat dinner.
Yeah,
I'm hungry.
Let's plug our articles before we go. I have a offensive coordinator article up about Pat Shurmur. Ryland asked some great questions earlier this week. Or was that Livingston? Who'd you ask the questions?
We got both. I don't think I actually got a question for Shurmur.
Okay.
Somebody took my question.
That's all right.
Somebody. I forget what I was going to ask, but somebody asked it before me, and I was like, okay, that's all I really wanted to know.
But we've got a great Shurmur article up now that I wrote.
Killed it.
Ryland had a great article up that was kind of a bye-week filler that was a good story about Travis Hunter and Deion Sanders.
Oh, yeah. Travis had an eventful bye week, and I wrote about it. He was chasing deer on a 4-wheeler at 1 a.m, and about 6 a.m, he was in State College, Pennsylvania, to game day. So I thought that was kind of funny. And then we'll post the pod tomorrow. We'll have some good stuff.
Yep.
We'll be at the game as credentialed media tomorrow. So make sure you're following Ralphie Report on Twitter and also me on Twitter. My ad's just Ryland Scholes. I usually post the more newsy stuff, and then the funnier stuff goes on Ralphie Report.
Yes. So if you guys are looking for hard, solid news,
Yeah.
Ryland is typically one of the, without the leaks, let's not count the leaks. Ryland is typically one of your first people to post the uniforms. So if you're,
that's my hunt every week. Is to get the uniforms.
And Ryland and I are real uniform snobs.
Yeah, we are. We follow that account on Instagram. What is it? The Helmet
Stalker.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
if
guys
you're a real football sicko, you got to follow Helmet Stalker.
I don't know.
We noticed Shador's helmet change in that CSU game immediately.
Like, bam.
It was like that.
And what Helmet Stalker had it up in 20 minutes. He's like, new Shador helmet.
Yeah, we beat Helmet Stalker to it.
He's got the model number. He's got everything up. And so look out tomorrow. Ryland's going to be the first guy with the uniforms.
I'll try. I'll do my darndest. It might not be, but I'll be one of the first.
Yeah. We'll have that up probably around 2 o'clock, about an hour before the game.
Uniforms. I trust the uniforms this year.
Yeah.
The uniforms have been good.
Absolute last thing. Any prediction on the uniform? We usually do it. We're always wrong. Like we thought it was going to be gold like 2 weeks ago. And
I'll take the TCU golds. I'll take the TCU white with the gold numbering.
Okay. Ooh, wow.
I'll take that.
You know what?
That's their last. They have 2 opportunities to do that this year, in the regular season at least.
I'm gonna go with the long shot here. I think I'm gonna go white helmet, white jersey, gray pants. We saw that combo maybe once last year.
I think so.
No, dude, I feel like we saw that.
That sounds evil.
Or okay. Let me compromise then. We'll go white helmet and the black face mask. We do that a lot. With the white jersey, black lettering, and the black pants. Let's compromise there. I want to say we had white with gray once, but I could be
wrong, but I don't remember that. And if that happened, I wouldn't have shut up about it for the whole year. I would have been really upset.
Okay, so let's go black pants, but I think we'll see.
That's better. I like that.
We'll see something interesting tomorrow. So
Texas Tech's wearing Patrick Mahomes uniforms, so they gotta have some heat.
That's wild. You're putting a current player's logo on your uniform, like
freaking Patrick Mahomes.
Mahomes.
It's not like it's like they're putting like Michael Crabtree's logo on their stuff. Oops, sorry.
That would be crazy.
A little bit.
That would be crazy.
All right. I think that's it for us, guys. I gotta go eat. I'm hungry.
Yes, sir.
I'm hungry. So thanks for tuning in, everyone who's tuned in. And go Buffs. Let's beat Texas Tech. Make sure to keep up with us for the game tomorrow. We'll have some good stuff up. Take care. Let's go Buffs.
That was sick. That was the best in game.